There are moves the NFL swallows in silence, then acts shocked when they explode in Los Angeles. David Njoku landed almost like a footnote, but the contract, the fit with Herbert, and Mike McDaniel's fingerprints are saying something much louder. And today we've also got speed rumors in the market, Derwin changing the ceiling of this defense, and a heavy prediction for this offense. Drop a like and subscribe, because the Chargers are building threats where a lot of people only saw details. And that's exactly where Njoku becomes one of those stories that only look small if you live off box scores and headlines. Behind the scenes, this feels like a front office stealing value in broad daylight. He was a former first-round pick, spent years stuck in a Cleveland offense that never gave him the ideal stability, hit the market, waited longer than a lot of people expected, and suddenly lands in a situation with Justin Herbert, Mike McDaniel, and a team that still has financial room to attack other spots. That is not a throwaway detail. That is opportunity. The contract number explains why I like this move so much. The deal was first reported as 1 year for $3 million, but the details now show an official 2026 cap hit of $2.95 million, with only $850,000 guaranteed, according to Over the Cap, and up to $5 million in incentives, according to SpotTrack. For the Chargers, that is basically a luxury bet with controlled risk. You do not lock up the budget, you do not sacrifice flexibility, you do not back yourself into a corner. And even after Derwin James's massive extension, the team still sits around $43 million in cap space. That is aggressive management with a calculator in hand. Ortiz is not throwing money out the window. He is buying an edge. For Njoku, the read is strong too. He is not walking in as the automatic king of the position, and that might be the part that makes this even more interesting. Orenday Gadsden is coming off a breakout year and looks like the #1 tight end in this offense. Charlie Kolar is also part of the picture, especially with blocking snaps and the way McDaniel can use heavier formations without becoming predictable. So Njoku is not arriving to be handed a crown. He is arriving to fight for a role, packages, targets, respect, and a bigger contract in 2027, whether that comes in Los Angeles or somewhere else. And honestly, that kind of internal pressure is healthy. The Chargers have spent too long being accused of depending on Herbert to save everything with his arm. The conversation is changing now. You put more useful bodies around him, more size, more combinations, more threats over the middle of the field. If McDaniel can turn this tight end trio into a tactical advantage, opposing defenses will have to pick their poison. Stay heavier and open space for speed, or go lighter in nickel and get hit physically. That is how a forgotten contract becomes a real problem for the league. The volume goes up for a different reason here, because when Tyreek Hill's name gets anywhere near the Chargers, half the league rolls its eyes and the other half starts doing coverage math. I understand both reactions. Tyreek is not the absolute nightmare he was a few years ago. Age comes for everybody. He is coming off a complicated season, with a serious knee injury, off-field wear, and a market that clearly did not sprint to hand him a contract. But football is not a museum. Football is fit, roll, and timing. That is where this projection gets dangerous. Alex K. from Bleacher Report listed the Chargers as a strong AFC West landing spot for Hill. Not a return to Kansas City, not cheap nostalgia with Andy Reid, a reunion with Mike McDaniel. And that part gets the fan base thinking, because McDaniel knows exactly how to use speed to bend a defense out of shape. He has seen Hill destroy angles, punish coverage with pre-snap motion, and create space where space did not seem to exist. So when you pair that history with Justin Herbert, a quarterback whose arm can attack any blade of grass on the field, the conversation stops feeling like gossip and starts feeling like aggressive chess. But I am not selling this like a fairy tale, because it is not one. The Chargers have Ladd McConkey as a trusted central piece, Quentin Johnston trying to become a weekly threat, Trey Harris rising on the radar, enough tight ends to build heavy packages, and a budget that still allows movement. The internal question would be sharp. Is it worth adding a veteran star, with explosive history and real risk, into an offense McDaniel is trying to build from scratch? If the medical answer is good, and the price does not get ridiculous, I would not hang up the phone. Not for 1 second. There is a huge difference between depending on Tyreek Hill and using Tyreek Hill as a multiplier. The Chargers would not need 140 targets, a record-breaking season, or a weekly miracle. They would need defenses to respect a threat whose name still carries fear. Sometimes his alignment alone moves a safety. Motion alone can reveal coverage. The possibility of that burst alone can open windows for McConkey, Njoku, Gadsden, and everybody else. And for anyone saying Los Angeles should not even look at it, slow down. Every team trying to beat the Giants of the AFC needs to be uncomfortable. You need a card the opponent hates preparing for. Hill may not be the same lightning strike he used to be, but if he is healthy enough to scare a defensive coordinator, the Chargers have a responsibility to evaluate it. Harbaugh brought structure. McDaniel brought creativity. Herbert just needs ammunition that makes a defense think twice before blinking. And if the offense is looking for ways to get nastier, the defense just got the kind of message that leaves nobody with a place to hide. Derwin James signed for 3 years and $75.6 million, climbed back to the top of the safety market, and that changes the Chris O'Leary conversation immediately. When you hand a new coordinator a player with that kind of weight, that kind of contract, that kind of voice, and that kind of versatility, expectations do not walk into the room. They kick the door open. A lot of people move past this part too quickly. Derwin's extension is not just a reward for a beautiful career, not just respect for leadership, not just the Chargers taking care of a franchise face before the conversation turned into noise. It is also the organization telling O'Leary, here is the nervous system of your defense. Now build something serious. Jesse Minter left a high standard. The Los Angeles defense finished top 10 in points allowed in both of his seasons, and nobody here is pretending that is easy to replace. But O'Leary is not starting empty-handed. Derwin is the piece that makes disguise possible. He can drop into the box, cover the slot, threaten as a blitzer, close angles against the run, communicate adjustments, rotate coverage, and make the opposing quarterback hesitate for half a second. And half a second in the NFL is a lifetime when Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, and Akeem Mesidor are trying to collapse the pocket. That is the beauty of having a defender who can play on all 3 levels. He does not solve one position. He changes the entire geometry of the defense. Of course, there is still work to do. Benjamin St-Just's departure leaves room to think about cornerback. The edge rusher hierarchy needs to be sorted out. The depth at inside linebacker still deserves attention, but the spine is there. Derwin, Tuli, Mack, young safeties like R.J. Mickens and Genesis Smith, and a coordinator who knows this group's DNA. So there is no comfortable excuse now. There is a massive opportunity, and I want to feel the fan base temperature on this one. Do you think O'Leary can keep this defense near Minter's level, or will the coordinator change cost them early in the season? To me, Derwin's extension puts the right kind of pressure on everybody. The leader stayed. The standard stayed. Now this defense has to walk onto the field like it knows exactly who owns that side of the ball. And after talking about a cheap weapon, possible speed, and a defense with an owner, we get to the point that might decide the Chargers' real ceiling in 2026. Mike McDaniel with the play sheet and Justin Herbert in the middle of the lab. Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated did not toss out some timid prediction. He said it is fair to hope for 25 points per game, right around the edge of the NFL's top 10. For a team that finished 20th in scoring at 21.6 points per game, that is not cosmetic cleanup. That is an identity shift. Look at the context. Last year's offense was not a total disaster, but it did not scare anybody when it needed to scare people. Greg Roman was gone after a playoff scoring output that left the fan base choking on frustration. 15 points in 2 games. That does not fit a quarterback like Herbert. Sorry, but you cannot have that arm, that intelligence, that ability to punish tight windows, and live like every touchdown has to come from raw effort. At some point, the system has to help the star. At some point, the call has to create an advantage before the snap. That is where McDaniel becomes a massive piece. He has already made it clear Herbert was part of the reason he took the job. Harbaugh also opened up during OTAs and said McDaniel is incredible, that he loves working with him, and that the connection with Herbert has been even better than he expected. To me, that is important behind-the-scenes material. That is not just one coach complimenting another coach. That is the head coach saying those two understand each other quickly, that they see football at a high level, that there is natural communication there. For a quarterback entering his 6th offensive coordinator in 7 years, that chemistry needs to become emotional protection and technical advantage. Now, 25 points per game do not fall out of the sky. The tackles need to stay healthy. The line has to give Herbert time. McConkey has to be the problem solver. Johnston has to punish defenses that fall asleep. Njoku, Gadsden, and Kolar need to turn heavy personnel into a real threat, not just a look. And if another speed piece shows up along the way, even better. McDaniel does not need to copy Miami. He needs to build the Chargers version. More physical, more vertical, more Herbert, more game control with hidden explosiveness. The league is used to talking about the Chargers like a promise that keeps delaying the jump. Breer's prediction puts the pressure in the right place. If this offense becomes top 10, the conversation changes from, can they get past the wild card, to, who wants to deal with this team in January? That is the energy Los Angeles needed. Put it all together and the picture gets clear. The Chargers are not waiting for respect to fall out of the sky. They are hunting for value on short contracts, studying big risk in the market, paying the leader of the defense, and giving Herbert a coordinator who can finally attack with imagination. Njoku could become a bargain. Hill is an explosive discussion. Derwin brings order and accountability. McDaniel brings ambition to the scoreboard. So stay locked in, subscribe, turn on notifications, and come back tomorrow because this season has not even truly started yet, and Los Angeles is already showing it wants to make a lot of people uncomfortable.